SODA, Survivors of Domestic Abuse, was actually set up back in April 2009 by myself, a survivor of domestic abuse. I wanted to reduce the isolation and raise awareness for others, really. So I set up a Facebook page, just offering support online. And since then I've been advocating on a daily basis, really, just raising awareness through my own personal experience, blogs, that kind of thing. We're now a voluntary group. We've got our committee, we've got a patron, we've got an ambassador, and we're working really hard to become a charity.
So it sounds like you've done an awful lot in 7 years.
Yes. I've done a few TV interviews, radio interviews and magazine interviews, again, just to raise awareness. Lots of people think they're the only ones suffering. They don't know how to speak out or who to turn to. So it's just to kind of give them confidence to eventually speak out.
I do remember once hearing somebody who did eventually speak out, and she said, well, the reason I haven't so far is because I felt that people would look at me and think, how silly were you? Is that what happens with some people?
Victim blaming is a huge barrier that does prevent people from speaking out. You usually get, why didn't you just leave? It's not that easy to just leave. Many people don't even know they're being abused. It's not all physical. A lot is psychological, sexual or financial as well. It's all about power and control, and they kind of cleverly disguise it as care rather than control. So you don't always know that you're a victim of it.
How did you find the strength, as it were, to come tell people?
I left in November 2006, basically because of my daughter. She saved my life. She was 10 months old, I was holding her, and my ex-partner slapped me, splitting my lip open whilst I was holding my daughter. And that for me was my wake-up call. I made my very last statement. I didn't withdraw it that time, got a non-molestation order out, and as I say, the rest is history.
So, how do you get charity status? Do you have to convince the charity trustees you should have it?
Yes, we've got, as I say, we've got a committee and they've set up some fundraising ideas. We've got a coast to coast coming up in September. We're hoping, we've got to raise £5,000 before we can get our charity number. Once we've got our charity number and our charity status, as I say, the world is our oyster. We've got plenty more plans for SODA. We want to focus on the aftercare of domestic abuse.
So what difference does it actually make in practical terms? So, you know, you wave a magic wand and you've got your charity status. What can you do or achieve that you can't do now?
We've got a lot more leeway with funding. Funding is a huge issue, not just for ourselves, but for many other charities as well. Without a charity number, many people can't, for legal reasons, they can't support us. They want to, but without that charity number, that they can't. So we're hoping that it will give us more access to funding, which will allow us to obviously work further and deeper in the community and with various agencies as well.
It's a real chicken and egg, this, isn't it?
It is, very much so.
Is it a fair system, do you think? I mean, do you...
No.
No, you obviously don't, no.
No, definitely not. Unfortunately, there's still not enough awareness, there's still not enough education. The justice system, unfortunately, there isn't any justice for those who've been affected by domestic abuse. Again, this is why people make statements and withdraw them. Police won't do anything. Even if the police do, the judges, they don't have a clear understanding of the complexity of the cycle.
I mean, I suppose in one sense that if somebody's been physically abused, it is easier to spot. But if it's any other sort of abuse, I suppose they can turn around and say, well, you know, you sure have you got this right, you know?
Absolutely. It's a lot of it is psychological, as you say. They twist everything, they make everything as though it's your fault. And because you're isolated from friends and family, they're the only stable thing in your life. So you believe what they say. The invisible scars are the worst. They don't just disappear when you leave. They're kind of always with you subconsciously. It doesn't just leave at all.
Did you ever suffer from thinking, I feel some guilt because I didn't do something beforehand, or?
Looking back now, out of the box, it's been almost 10 years for me. There were so many signs when I could have left. But I only know that now because I've suffered it, I've come out the other side. You don't see any of that when you're actually there. So yeah, you do feel a little bit of guilt, but a lot of it is domestic abuse happens because of the perpetrators, not the person they're abusing.
So you can't I know people can't rattle tins now, but you know what I'm saying. You can't stand outside of the supermarket saying, "Here are we. Can you support us?"
We've got good support from Tesco in Stourbridge. They let us use their store for various fundraising events. We've just had one where our volunteers have cycled for 2 hours solid raising money. We've raised a couple of £100 from that. We've got a fashion show coming up in October with, fingers crossed, Beverly Callard, who is Liz McDonald from Coronation Street.
Okay.
She's going to be our guest visitor, if you like. She's going to come along with a few of Liz McDonald's outfits to auction off to help raise funds.
That's good.
So we've got lots of things in the pipeline to help us get towards this £5,000.
Because it's, you know, some people, you see them when they stop to buy for charity. Animal charities get a mixed reaction. As soon as you mention children and things like that, and cancer charities, you can understand why people give. I would have thought this would have been something that would have got a lot of support, that you don't have to sell it, really.
I was a bit dubious about doing this, really, because domestic abuse isn't something you talk about every day. A lot of people don't know what it is, that kind of thing. But the interest we've had with people stopping and actually talking to you and wanting to know more has been amazing. It really, really has. They've seemed really interested and given generously as well, which is fantastic.
So we can just give you a quick plug then. What are your next 2 events?
Our next 2 events are Coast to Coast Cycle, which is 185 miles over 3 days, which is taking place in September.
Are you doing this?
I'm not, no. I'm the media lady. I'm just
No,
spreading awareness for everybody,
organising
for our
it,
fantastic
And
volunteers.
when's the fashion show?
And the fashion show is the 7th of October at Stourbridge Town Hall.